Feech Manna didn't fall because he broke the rules. He fell because he was the last idiot still following them. The tragedy of Feech Manna is not simply that he's an anachronism, it's that he never realized he was one. The man walked out of prison expecting to rejoin La Cosa Nostra, only to find himself stepping into the ruins of it. Once, in his mind at least, there had been honor, discipline, codes, men of loyalty and discretion who died before dishonoring their families. Now, the family is a business run by sloppy, self-serving amateurs. What was once an oath-bound brotherhood has become a clown show of greed, arrogance, and mediocrity. Feech hails from the generation that believed in the myth of the Sicilian Code. Respect the Don, protect the racket, and never, under any circumstances, involve the innocent. But when he arrives in New Jersey, he finds this world overrun by impulsive teenagers, Tony and Jackie among them, robbing his card game like street punks who stumbled into the wrong neighborhood. Instead of being disciplined for the insult, they are rewarded with reputation and influence. In the warped modern hierarchy, stupidity is charisma, and recklessness is power. He goes to prison for 20 years, silently, loyally, without a hint of betrayal, only to return and find those same gutter rats enthroned as the bosses. The insult isn't just that he must now kiss the rings of men he once would have buried. It's that the code he sacrificed everything for has evaporated into performance art. Honor and integrity are now props in a play about self-delusion. They mean nothing, yet they are invoked constantly, like saints in a corrupt church. The old-school mobsters, Feech, Richie Aprile, Johnny Sack, like to think they were the last generation of true believers. But The Sopranos makes no effort to indulge their nostalgia. These men weren't paragons of virtue. They were just better at lying to themselves. The show's infamous trip to Italy exposes this fantasy in brutal fashion. Tony and Paulie, expecting to find the real mafia, the disciplined soldiers of a noble tradition, discover instead a pack of savages beating a child in the street. So much for the refined criminal order of the old world. Even Paulie, who can justify nearly anything, is revolted. Feech's own behavior betrays his mythology. He prattles on about loyalty and respect while directly disobeying Tony's orders, robbing people he was explicitly told to leave alone, and treating his new boss like an upstart child. His honor manifests as arrogance, his tradition as entitlement. The man believes time froze while he was in prison, that the world waited for him to resume his rightful place. When it doesn't, he sulks, mocks Tony with his passive-aggressive humor, and mistakes insolence for principle. The show captures his unraveling in one of its most quietly vicious scenes. Feech asks Tony for a piece of the card game business, and Tony, ever the politician, obliges. On the surface, as they reminisce about the long-ago robbery of Feech's game, the old man's bitterness still seeps through, a wound that never healed. Later, at his new game, Tony publicly hijacks Feech's story, humiliating him in front of his peers. The symmetry is perfect. Tony robs him again. Not for money this time, but for dominance. Feech watches, seething behind his grin, while everyone else laughs too loudly, too eagerly. Carmela once observed that Tony's friends laugh at his jokes because he's the boss. The scene proves it. The laughter is currency, and Feech, old, proud, obsolete, can't afford it anymore. This humiliation echoes later in the series when Christopher, drunk and paranoid, looks around a table and sees those same hollow smiles aimed at him. Feech saw them first. He recognized the performance, the fear masquerading as camaraderie. The modern mob is not a fraternity, but a pack of wolves who take turns pretending to lead. Feech's downfall is not just a subplot, it's a thesis. The Sopranos dismantles the mythology of the honorable gangster with surgical precision. Tony constantly laments that he came in at the end, that the older generations were real men. But every flashback and anecdote proves otherwise. These men were not heroes of discipline and loyalty. They were thugs dressed in nostalgia. Even Tony's own uncle tried to have him killed. The illusion of a better past is one of the show's central obsessions. Every character clings to it. Tony with his golden age fantasies, Feech with his outdated codes, Polly with his empty reverence for tradition. Yet the truth remains unchanged. They were thugs then, and they're thugs now. The nostalgia isn't for a nobler world. It's for a time when their brutality still felt meaningful. In this light, Feech's imprisonment becomes the ultimate irony. He does everything right, keeps his mouth shut, serves his time, returns expecting honor and gratitude. But his loyalty is worthless currency in a bankrupt culture. Tony's crew respects him in theory, but finds him an inconvenience in practice. They admire the myth of men like Feech, not the men themselves. When Feech emerges from prison, he's treated not as a returning soldier, but as an old bill coming due. Even his attempt to reclaim a small piece of his former life, a landscaping racket of all things, is met with resistance. Tony, always concerned with his own image as the modern boss, won't even grant him that. Feech, who once commanded entire operations, is reduced to haggling over lawns. The man who wouldn't snitch to save himself now finds no one willing to lift a finger for him. The tragedy of Feech Manna is not that he's betrayed by others, but that he's betrayed by time. He believes in an order that never truly existed, in men who were never truly noble. His code was merely the rhetoric of self-importance, the bedtime story the mob told itself to sleep at night. The so-called golden age of La Cosa Nostra was not a moral order. It was just a more disciplined version of the same rot. And yet, in a perverse way, Feech's stubbornness gives him a kind of dignity. He refuses to adapt, not because he's pure, but because he's incapable of pretending. He cannot stomach the spectacle of Tony Soprano, the man who once robbed his game, now parading as a patriarch. He cannot laugh along with the sycophants, so he plays his final role, the dinosaur who refuses extinction gracefully. When he's finally removed from the picture, humiliated, broken, and discarded, it isn't for betraying the code, but for believing in it too much. The modern mob has no use for faith, only for flexibility. Feech represents the dying illusion that there was ever such a thing as honor among thieves. The Sopranos exposes that illusion mercilessly. The mob's moral decay isn't a recent fall from grace. It's the revelation of what was always there. Feech's downfall isn't the collapse of old values. It's the moment the lie runs out of breath. In the end, Feech Manna is not a tragic hero of the Lost Mafia. He's its perfect eulogy. A man who spent a lifetime believing in a code that never believed in him. Feech followed the rules. You don't have to. Hit subscribe.